Live every day as if it were the last, because before you know it, time goes past and life's just not that long. Tell all you love that you love them so, because even if you do, they might not know, and one day we'll all be gone. Taste the wind, don't let it blow on by. Sing songs of love, let the music get you high, and when it's said and done, you'll know the sun shines.
I ask you who sincerely believe in Jesus and the Bible, do you believe Jesus' mother Mary got pregnant with the baby Jesus with no man having sex with her? Do you believe the shepherds saw many angels in the sky and heard them speak? Why did I preach? Why did I teach for years these make-believe fairy tales from the Bible? Why did I swallow for years this religious bullshit as fact? Why did it take me years to stop swallowing and spreading these stories as truth? Do you sincere believers in Jesus believe Jesus rose from the dead after he was viciously crucified? Do you know of any woman in the world thousands of years ago getting pregnant with no man involved? Has any sane and sober person you know ever seen real angels in the sky? Have you or anyone anywhere you've heard of ever seen a star lead people to the place where they wanted to go? Do you know of anyone for sure, dead and buried, coming to life again? Talk about crazy science fiction. Talk about false advertising by companies. Is it any wonder that many sincere believers who do not question deeply these Bible stories swallowed the damn lies of Donald Trump and many other politicians? Many other religions and philosophies besides Christianity are also loaded with crazy bullshit. Sadly, religious bullshit comes in many flavors, many brands, besides Christianity. Will we wake up? Will we stand up? Will we stop believing, stop pretending to believe this crap? No matter how much our family and longtime friends pressure us and use hell to scare us. Sadly, millions of smart people all over the world for many hundreds of years turn off their bullshit detector concerning religion or politics. They become like kids swallowing what adults feed them. In many places for thousands of years, if I had said publicly what I have just said in these last few minutes, I could have been cursed, I could have been beaten up. I could have been tortured. I could have been locked up. I could have been run out of town or killed by a mob. All in the name of the creator of the universe. Much of religion, not all of religion, but much of religion of whatever brand, turns off our brains and is the enemy of freedom of conscience, freedom of speech. I'm glad my mother never told me Santa Claus was real. But sadly, she and I both swallowed the Bible's Christmas stories as fact and as truth. It took me years, with the help of many people, to wake up. Many years ago, a gay friend visited me on our farm in Illinois. He wanted to have sex with me. He tried so hard to please me sexually and to turn me on, but I was not attracted to him sexually. I hope I always remember that experience, so I do not pester, so I do not pressure any friend for sex if he is not attracted to me sexually. To feel pressured by a friend to have sex if I'm not turned on by him does not feel good. The universe is far larger than any of us can imagine. Most of space in the universe is very cold, very lonely, very dark, except for the tiny points of light from millions of distant stars. Light travels at 186,000 miles per second. Not per hour, not per minute. Light travels at 186,000 miles per second. Our sun is a medium-sized star, 93 million miles from Earth. The sunshine we see left the sun 8 minutes before we see it. The light from some distant stars left those stars thousands or millions, maybe even billions of years ago. And of course, we cannot see those far stars with our naked eye. Some may not even be at all visible with the most powerful visual telescopes, but with radio telescopes. So except for our sun, the next closest star is 4 light years away. The next closest star is 4 light years away. So just pretend if all the stars in the universe, except for our sun, suddenly disappeared, we would not know it for at least 4 years, and for most stars, hundreds, thousands, even millions of years. When we look at the stars in the night sky, we see the past. We see history. We do not see now there. Very humbling for us on this tiny speck of earth. Pretend a ball could circle the earth just high enough not to hit any buildings, any mountains, if that ball could travel at the speed of light, the ball could circle the earth about 7 times in 1 second. Not 1 minute, not 1 hour. The ball could circle the earth about 7 times in 1 second if it were traveling at the speed of light. Many stars have planets, but we know of no other planet for sure in the universe that has life like Mother Earth. The worst place on earth for humans to live is far better than the best place on any of our sun's other planets. Earth is our only home. Why trash it? Even though we don't feel it, we are traveling very fast through space on the earth. The earth is turning, causing night and day. The earth is going around the sun, causing seasons, spring, summer, fall, winter. Traveling with our sun and other planets, our solar system, traveling in our galaxy, this massive family of stars. And our galaxy is moving through the universe at unimaginable speeds. And we don't feel it. We trash. Why trash? Why trash our precious home, Mother Earth? The climate emergency threatens life as we know it for plants, for animals, and for us humans. People living in huge, clean mansions and traveling thousands of miles on business trips or on vacations, using the earth like some playground of theirs. People like that are trashing our Mother Earth far more than homeless people with heaps of trash along our streets. A good way to celebrate Christmas or other holidays with family and friends, if the weather is good, go to a park, go to a backyard, eat together, only healthy food, no booze, no sodas, no fast food, no factory fake food, crap, nothing with added sugar, and best would be all raw plant foods, preferably local and organic. No expensive gifts that no one needs. Sing together some favorite songs. And for those who are able, a long walk together in nature. Invite everyone in your group of family and friends to ask any question to anyone in the group about their lives, about sex, about family secrets. No restrictions. And the person asked may refuse to answer for any reason. Listen to each other's short, true stories, sad or funny stories, memories, lessons of life, compliments, apologies, heartfelt thanks. a better way to celebrate Christmas. If we love our friend or if we love our relative, will we give them sodas, candy, cookies, ice cream, cake, no matter how much they want it, and no matter how much they beg us? Sugar is the gateway drug. Sugar is slow poison, often, not always, but often leading to alcoholism. If we care about other human beings' health, will we make these poisons? Will we sell these poisons? Will we deliver these poisons to people we give a damn about? People who are addicted to these poisons? If all the many millions of desperately poor people on earth were suddenly able to buy, consume, pollute, travel, and eat meat and dairy as most middle income or even lower middle income people in the United States, the Earth's environment and the climate emergency would be far worse than it is right now. The American dream is a nightmare disaster for life on earth. I have no right to much more than I need, while many millions worldwide suffer on far less than they need. Suffer hunger, sickness, cold, with no home. I enjoy living simply on less than the U.S. poverty level for me as a single person. My home is one sunny, rented room, 9.5 by 12 feet, with 6 windows in the house of a friend. Also a garden for food and flowers. I enjoy nutritious food, good health, much walking, other exercise, many friends. Enough. Bastante. Enough. Sadly, most people in the United States are constantly bombarded from television, radio, newspaper, internet, billboards, to buy stuff no one needs. They become severely addicted to this crap. Much like growing up in a family where almost everyone is a boozer. Almost everyone is alcoholic. Living healthy, living sober, living sane with no booze in such a family seems weird, strange. The same living simply in a society that is just racing for more stuff. I enjoy living simply. Less spoiled. I was very spoiled as a kid growing up. Too many clothes, too many books, too many records. Less spoiled, living simply. Less bills, less stress, more freedom to enjoy life. I refuse to be a slave to ads, to commercials, to corporations for crap I do not need and I do not want. Why hog much more than my fair share in our world family of over 7 billion sisters and brothers. Freedom is not wanting much stuff I do not need. Now, if I wanted it and I didn't have it, that wouldn't be freedom. But freedom is not wanting much stuff I do not need. My time is more precious than millions of dollars. My friendships are more precious than mansions full of expensive crap. Booze, junk food, cocaine, meth, sugar, heroin, guns, cigarettes, sodas, all of those are awful addictions. But no addiction is more harmful than craving much more money, much more stuff than we need. Some reasons many teenage girls get pregnant. Some girls know little or nothing about sex and about birth control. Some girls and their boyfriends have sex when they're boozing and do not think much at the moment about getting pregnant. Some girls are rebelling against their parents' authority, wanting to punish their parents for being so strict. Some girls want to have their boyfriend's baby to please him, to show him how much she loves him, or to hang on to him. But often that does not work. Some guys, when they find out their girlfriend is pregnant, want to run as far as they can away from the responsibility. Some girls, boyfriends, want to be fathers to prove they are men. And that includes some gay men in the closet, some bisexual men who doubt their masculinity because of their attraction for men. And if parents have divorced or a parent has died, the girl may feel having a baby will fill her heart's empty hole. Some girls think having a baby will show they can produce something precious, something special, and have someone to love, someone who will love them in return as the years pass, they hope. For many years, the racist drug war in the United States against marijuana traumatized and tore apart the lives and families of many thousands of mostly black and brown people, even though whites used marijuana at about the same rate. Have you heard of any rich white person sent to prison for possessing marijuana? 3 recent U.S. presidents, George W. Bush, Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, all later admitted to having used marijuana many years earlier. If you were mostly white students at high-class, prestigious universities, you could use marijuana and end up in the White House or as president of a corporation. But if you were brown or black from the inner city and caught possessing marijuana, You could be locked up for years and scarred for your whole life in finding a good job, in having a prison record. While the filthy rich booze companies, the filthy rich cigarette companies raked in billions of dollars from addicting people to their slow poison. Booze and cigarettes sicken and kill millions of users. Marijuana sickens and kills few, if any, users. Marijuana helps dozens of illnesses. George Mizo, M-I-Z-O, was a Native American soldier in the Vietnam War. He realized the war was evil. And after his whole platoon, except for him, was killed, he became totally committed to stopping the war as a soldier within the military. And years after the war, George Mizo returned to Vietnam as a civilian. He became friends with the North Vietnamese general whose soldiers had killed all of George's platoon except for George. And together, these former enemies, including other U.S. veterans and North Vietnamese veterans, built the Friendship Village there in Vietnam, a home for victims of Agent Orange, the horrific, deadly poison that the U.S. sprayed all over Vietnam during the war. This Agent Orange caused many children born tragically deformed since the war and maybe for the next 500 years. I strongly compliment hero of conscience, Native American George Mizo and other veterans who changed from waging war to waging peace. George was the first U.S. person to receive the Vietnam Medal of Friendship for his outstanding humanitarian service. And I urge you to watch. If you go to YouTube, watch this powerful documentary entitled The Friendship Village about George Mizo, Native American Vietnam veteran who worked with his former enemy, the North Vietnamese general, to establish this village for the victims of the United States' evil war. The Friendship Village, it's on YouTube. And you probably can get it also on DVD through the public library, interlibrary loan. I dropped the paper. If you love your young friends and relatives, do your damnedest to discourage them from joining the world's most deadly terrorist gang, the U.S. military. Many youth who are fed up with the strict parents and school principals get baited into the much worse U.S. military. The U.S. military trains and equips these young people to be professional hired killers, to murder on command people who might have been their close friends if they had all lived on the same street. Soldiers soul poisoned to murder with no guilt. Soldiers excusing their murders with, "I'm just following orders." Soldiers paid by the military chaplains, soldiers told by the paid military chaplains that killing other human beings in war is their noble, patriotic duty approved by God. Soldiers who sometimes become more afraid of being put down by their buddies and families back home if they express shame or guilt or fear about combat. Soldiers who sometimes become more afraid of being seen as wimps by their buddies and families back home, more afraid of that than they are of being shot by the enemy on the battlefield. Soldiers crippling, blinding, making homeless, killing kids and old people. Crimes which would put them in prison for many years, even for life, if they did those same crimes in the United States, in their home communities. The U.S. military is far worse than any street gang, any crazy cult. And I urge you to watch on YouTube this documentary, Sir, No, Sir, about the huge movement of hundreds of U.S. soldiers in the Vietnam War who stood up and publicly protested the war. Hundreds and hundreds of U.S. soldiers who saw what they were doing was insane, was evil. And they stood up. Sir, No, Sir, on YouTube. Watch it. And if you know any young people who are even considering entering the world's most dangerous gang, the worst terrorist gang, urge them to watch it, every moment of it, before they sign the dotted line. When I was a kid, sitting at our kitchen table, eating with my mother and dad, I often slouched. My dad told me, "Sit up straight." And yes, my dad was right on that. Slouching is no good. Slouching can cause backache. Slouching scrunches our lungs, our stomach, our liver, our kidneys, our heart together. Slouching can make the person look less attractive. Slouching can make the person look tired and worn out, lazy. Healthy, confident, alive, outgoing, friendly people who've had enough sleep usually stand and sit and walk straight and tall if they are physically able. Pulling my cart as I walk many places, I often lean forward. But When you see me slouch, if I'm sitting, if I'm standing, if I'm walking, please tell me to straighten up. Women and men wearing high heels on shoes and boots is bad for the back. If you walk barefoot in sand or dirt, notice how your heels sink deeper than your toes. But the high heels on women's shoes and the high heels on men's cowboy boots do just the opposite to our feet, causing the heels to be higher than the toes. And that's hard on the spine, and that stresses the muscles of our backs. Romantic relationships where the persons are many years apart in age sometimes work. African-American Baird Rustin was an openly gay man. Baird Rustin was the chief organizer for the 1963 March on Washington, D.C., when Prophet Martin Luther King Jr. delivered his I Have a Dream speech. A 25-year-old Quaker white man, 25-year-old Quaker white man who was gay, initiated and took the lead in a romantic relationship with 63-year-old African-American activist Baird Rustin. 38 years difference in their ages. And the 25-year-old gay white Quaker man took the initiative, took the lead in establishing that relationship. They stayed together 12 years until Baird died at age 75. And this was Baird Rustin's longest romantic relationship. Sometimes, not always by any means, sometimes romantic relationships between a man and a woman, two women, two men, with many years difference in their ages, works. The great radical historian who died some years ago, Howard Zinn, who wrote the over million copy bestseller, The People's History, A People's History of the United States, and I highly recommend the book to you, find it in the library, said, to be hopeful in bad times is based on the fact that human history is not only of cruelty, but also of compassion, sacrifice, courage, kindness. If we see only the worst, it destroys our capacity to do something. If we remember those times, those places where people have behaved magnificently, this gives us the energy to act. And if we do act in however small a way, we don't have to wait for some grand utopian future. The future is an infinite succession of presence, and to live now as we think human beings should live, in defiance of all the bad that is around us, is itself a marvelous victory. and more wisdom, and this from William DeBuys, D-E, capital B-U-Y-S, who is the author of 10 books. And he lives on a farm he has tended since 1976 in northern New Mexico. He says, hope means different things to different people. In its simplest form, it expresses a desire for things to turn out well, for a worrying story to have a happy ending. And most of the time when people ask about hope, they're asking, will everything be all right? Can we return to how things used to be when this worry did not exist? He says, with regard to climate change, the answer is no. Too much CO2 and other heat-trapping gases already burden the planet's atmosphere and oceans. The effects will be with us for at least several lifetimes. We cannot draw a get-out-of-jail-free card, for none exists. But hope has other meanings. The activist Václav Havel wrote, hope is definitely not the same as optimism. It is not the conviction that something will turn out well, but the certainty that something makes sense, regardless of how it turns out. The essence of hope, Havel was saying, is to believe in the intrinsic goodness of right action, to do something because it's right, and not because we're sure that it's going to change things, but because it's right. And we are each responsible for how we live our lives and the example to others that we have. Through his many years as an outcast or in prison, fighting the Soviet domination of Czechoslovakia, Havel never knew until the Soviet Union's final collapse if his efforts would succeed. And yet, he persisted in a spirit of hope, knowing his course was correct. The novelist Barbara Kingsolver also distinguishes between hope and optimism. In her view, the pessimist would say, it's going to be a terrible winter. We're all going to die. The optimist would say, oh, it'll be all right. I don't think it'll be that bad. But the hopeful person would say, maybe someone will still be alive in February. So I'm going to put some potatoes in the root cellar just in case. Kingsolver concludes, hope is a mode of survival. I think hope is a mode of resistance. The hope she describes is close to the ecological notion of surprise, that sometimes big, consequential things happen with virtually no warning. An earthquake or the fall of the Soviet Union being good examples. To trust in uncertainty of the future, believing in the possibility, however remote, of beneficial change, of a good change. This is the essence of hope. This is what hope is about. Of course, surprise is no panacea. It can harm as well as benefit. A new coronavirus triggering a pandemic being a salient case in point. Surprise comes to us out of the vastness of what we do not know. It is amoral and uncaring. But it's also central to true hopefulness. Roshi Joan puts surprise and uncertainty at the center of her teaching. Placing trust in not knowing, she says, offers a strategy for dealing with dark times. Change is certain, and there's always a chance, even a sliver of a chance, things will improve. Here is where King Solver's wisdom connects with Havel's. King Solver is talking about future surprise, the uncertainty of how the winter that lies ahead will turn out. Havel is talking about how we carry ourselves in the meantime. We have to do what makes sense, regardless of the outcome. In jail, Havel could not know if the Soviet Union would crumble during his lifetime. Nor could Nelson Mandela, during 33 years imprisoned in South Africa on Robben Island. He could not know when apartheid would disintegrate. But when the long-desired surprise arrived, both men, Havel in Czechoslovakia and Nelson Mandela, black man in Africa, having done what makes sense, seized the moment, and they helped render the surprise as beneficial as possible. The essence of their preparation was that they never lost hope. A woman wrote, "Dear Abby, these people who write in with sympathy for the poor teenagers of divorced or separated parents make me ill," she said. "I wish I had divorced my husband long before my children were teenagers. They would probably be much better adjusted to life than they are now. I asked my 14-year-old son if he wanted his father to move back in. His dad was hanging around the house at mealtime. My son was a quiet boy, a deep thinker. He said, 'Mom, I like Dad better when he doesn't live here.' This woman says, my son is now 34. On a recent visit, I asked him if he ever remembered seeing his father put his arms around me or kiss me. And he said, once, when he was leaving town. This man mentally abused the children, mentally abused me. I could go on for hours," she says. "I can truthfully say that I have been happier the last 18 years since my divorce than I've ever been. I've adjusted pretty well, but my son needs counseling to get on with his life. The bottom line is this: there are worse things than a broken home." What an honest letter from the heart from this woman. Dear Abby, a Florida doctor writes, 3 years ago, unknown to me, at the urging of some so-called friends, my wife tried cocaine. And within months, in a nightmare words cannot describe, she was severely addicted. Thousands of dollars had been spent to support her addiction to cocaine. A once gentle and loving wife and mother lied, stole, even prostituted herself for cocaine. In a terrifying incident while under the influence of cocaine, she held me at bay with a loaded pistol, threatening to kill me and the children. A year later, I was forced to divorce someone I had truly loved in a failed effort to save my family from financial ruin. Eventually, I lost my home. I lost my medical practice that had taken me years to build as I helplessly watched a once wonderful person lose her struggle to overcome the addictive power of cocaine. He says, as a physician, I've seen a lot of human suffering, but nothing can compare to the living death of cocaine addiction. Abby, please tell your readers that someone who has been there has said, don't even try it. In the 1800s, in the United States, same-sex friends of all ages, men and men, women and women, held hands while walking down the streets of cities and towns. Few people regarded this as strange or remarkable. When same-sex friends kissed each other full on the lips in public or in private. And fewer still saw anything unusual in the common American practice of same-sex friends sleeping in the same bed, sometimes for years at a time. And rather than regarding this sleeping arrangement as a grim necessity of overcrowded houses, U.S. teenagers and married persons then, in the 1800s, indicated that they looked forward to their next opportunity to share a bed with a same-sex friend. And whether in privileged society or in working class culture, letters between same-sex friends, letters between close men friends and close women friends, had emotional intensity and passionate references. A Jewish woman artist that I met years ago here in Albuquerque wrote for publication. She says, I have many Jewish friends and relatives who condemned the German people for quietly looking the other way during the Holocaust. And many of them now, these Jewish friends and relatives, blindly support the state terrorism of Israel against the Palestinians as its right to defend itself. She says, do they not see the parallel experience of both the Jews and the Palestinians being dragged from their homes and territories only to die in a camp somewhere, one a quick racial extermination of the Jews under the Nazis, the other a slow one of the Palestinians under the brutal Israeli regime. She says it's a well-known psychological phenomenon that victims of abuse will react to the trauma by abusing others. Sadly, she says, I watch Israel epitomize this. Will we all stand by and do nothing and tell our grandchildren that we did not know what was really going on? Or will we follow the example of Amira Haas, an Israeli Jewish journalist living in Ramallah, who chose to heed the words of her mother, who was a survivor of the Holocaust in Nazi Germany? Her mother said, never be a silent witness. If you see it, take action, speak out. And another Jewish woman who is now dead, she lived here in Albuquerque. She says, I'm as Jewish as you are. My mother's whole family was wiped out in the Holocaust. The mistreatment of Palestinians, the taking of their homes, their land, their water, their trees, and more, will not make Israel safer. The demolishing of the Lebanese infrastructure will only increase the popularity of the Hezbollah terrorists. Ruth Imber, this Jewish woman who died some years ago, says some of us feel ashamed of the behavior of the Israeli government. Israel has brought upon itself the current disaster. Have we stooped so low that the Palestinian people, who actually have valid human concerns too, are not considered to be human by many American Jewish supporters of Israel, by many Israeli people, or the Israeli war machine? Strong words of wisdom and conscience from the Jewish woman Ruth Imber in Albuquerque. I urge you to watch, if you don't already, the program Democracy Now! On local TV, and it's also on KUNM radio, 89.9 FM, Monday through Friday on radio from 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock, hosted by Amy Goodman, whom I've heard speak here. Amy Goodman is a committed activist for peace and justice. Amy Goodman is a Jewish woman. Her grandfather was an Orthodox rabbi. And Amy Goodman takes a strong stand for the human rights of the Palestinians. Amy Goodman dares to damn the atrocities of the Israeli government. Her co-host is Juan Gonzalez, a longtime Puerto Rican activist and journalist based in New York City. Democracy Now! On over 1,300 radio and TV stations, plus the internet, including radio and TV here in Albuquerque. Good night.
Live every day as if it were the last, because before you know it, time goes past and life's just not that long. Tell all you love that you love them so, because even if you do, they might not know. And one